Nasreen Munni Kabir, welcome to CNN News 18.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nasreen, Waheeda Rahman will be awarded with the prestigious Dada Saheb Phalke Award. Your book, Conversations with Waheeda Rahman, covers her life journey, the film, and the role that shaped her career. According to you, what is the secret behind Waheeda Rahman's long and enduring film journey as she's being honored with the highest film honor?
I really do believe that, first of all, I think it's wonderful that she's got this award and she well deserves it. I would also say that I think that she deserves it because she was quite discriminating in her accepting certain roles. I think she would either, if there was no bound script, she would ask about the story. She chose very good directors and very good projects. And if you work in the right films, that's half the problem is solved because you are working with films that have some kind of shelf life. And if we see her films, of course, there are the films with Gurudatji, but also don't forget Guide. Then you don't forget also Tisri Kasam, which I think is a lovely film. There is also Mujhe Jeene Do. There are many other films. So you could see that she is not, as they would call, a one-trick pony. She is a person who has an understanding of cinema and an understanding of how to choose a good character.
Before moving on, your book is loaded with anecdotes. But would you please like to tell us how you met Waheeda ji for the first time? And was that for this book?
Actually, no. I was at that time, this was sometime in the 80s. I was going to do a documentary, which I finally did, about Guru Dadji. And in connection with that, I met around 30 or 35 people who had worked with him and so on. And Waheeda ji was one of them. I have to say, she was one of the most difficult persons to pin down. Number one was because she was living in Bangalore, and the only telephone number I really had was her Bombay one. So I was just happened to be lucky when she came to Bombay for a few days, and I came to meet her. She said, yes, you can come, and explain what the project was. And she was very, very gracious. I will say very reserved as well. She's a very reserved person. She's not effusive and she's not someone who hugs you and all the darlings and all of that, none of that. And she said, okay. And she listened to me and she said, all right. And so when we finally came to make the interview, to do the interview, which was in 1988-89, she kept her word because many film people say yes and then बस 9 to 11 हो जाते हैं. So they are, she wasn't like that. So she said, I'll be there at 2 o'clock in this place where we had a car and so on. And she gave the interview.
Correct to say Waheeda Rahman was destined to become a big star. She lived the life on her own terms, from getting a first assignment as in the Telugu film Rojalu Marai, in which she was only part of one song, to signing her first Hindi film that was produced by Guru Dutt. The terms and conditions, the clauses she added about the costume, if I'm not wrong.
That's right. She was very clear about various things, that the kind of clothes she would wear on screen as the character. And also she was very, very clear that she did not want to change her name. In those days, like in the 50s and 40s, there were many actresses, Muslim actresses, like Meena Kumari and Madhubala and so on, who changed their names. Whereas Waheeda Rehman, the Waheeda Rahman is not a very starry name or glamorous name, but she stuck with it and she said, that's the name my parents have given me and that's the name I will be known by. And in those days, for someone who's a newcomer, not to compromise shows character. And I would say Waheeda ji is not someone who compromises. She is quite clear that certain things she will not do. And I think that has held her in very good state because if you compromise too much, then you lose a sense of who you are. And I think Waheeda ji always knew who she was.
Especially her equation with Raj Khosla, if I'm not wrong.
Famously, they had arguments about costumes and various, but also she did wonderful films with him. Because if you look at Solva Sal, it's a totally charming film, So there was I think with directors and actors, there's always can be, I shouldn't say always, a certain tension because one wants to pull in one direction and the other wants the other direction. One thinks about the film in one way and the actor thinks about it another way. And don't forget, we're talking about the 50s. And very frankly, in the 50s, there was women were dressed in a very modest way. And for her, in the role that she's playing, for her to be wearing revealing clothes did not make great sense, Vishal. So why would she say yes? And things changed slowly.
Then would you please like to share that anecdote that you also mentioned in the book about how she refused to wear the blouse during the shoot of CID?
Yes, there's a scene in which she has to wear a kind of revealing a blouse because in the film she plays the gangster's moll. So it wasn't a vamp, but not exactly the Mrs. Next Door. She was a slightly, character who was on the side of the gangsters. And there was a scene in which the character that Dev Saab plays has to go away, and rather he comes to see her and she's supposed to wear a revealing, her backless kind of blouse, and Waheeda ji refused. And Raj Khosla was in a big hurry because Devanand was leaving the next day because his son Sunil was going to be born in Switzerland, and therefore he was in a hurry. So this often happens, this tension between schedules, scenes, and the actor's willingness or unwillingness. And that became, I think, kind of a very big part of their relationship. And so uh, later it resolved because she did work with Raj Khosla again. And don't forget, Raj Khosla, CID was produced by Gurudat, so Gurudat must have also been involved. And apparently he sided with Waheeda ji and said, okay, don't wear those costumes if it doesn't pleases you. Because frankly, a costume doesn't make the character, it's the personality that makes a character.
And Guru only spotted her, like he is the one who asked her to come to Mumbai.
Yes, you see, don't forget one thing, that Gurudat was a choreographer before he was a film director. So when he saw her dance, he could see she had grace in her movements, and he could also see she was camera friendly. Now, you and I may be great in our work or not great, but we may not be camera friendly. We may not look so great on camera, but she looked very good. And if you look at the clip, Vijal, you could say she's mesmerizing. You could ask yourself, who is this young girl? And he must have thought that, not just because she had a nice face, but because she could dance well, and he liked the fact. However, we must note something: in none of Guru Duttji's films did she dance at all. She never danced in his films. So that is quite interesting. Though he picks her for her style and her dance style, he never asks her to dance. Like, for example, in Kagas Ke Phool, he's making a movie and that actress could have danced in a scene, but he never asked her to dance. So she never dances in any of Guru Duttji's films.
I also like that story in the book where she after watching the film she gave that feedback to Gurudat and said, that song is actually not working. The boat song, was that Pyasa or was it Kagas Ke Phool?
Pyasa.
Pyasa.
Yes. And but we have to give credit to Guru Dutt, because there's some directors who turn around and say, what nonsense, why are you interfering with my work? Often they'll say, ye aapka kaam nahi hai. So the fact is that Guru Dutt was open enough to understand you may be very, very close to something you're working on, a film or a book or something, and you lose perspective. You are so immersed in it. It's even like cooking. When you cook biryani or something, you don't know what it tastes like. It's only the others who will tell you what it tastes like. So he was someone who understood that other people will have a good reading of the film. And if she feels it brings down the narrative, stops the narrative at that point, he listened to her.
Nasreen, you have interviewed many superstars from Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan to Gulzar, and now Waheeda Rahman. Is there one quality that you think you have observed in all these super achievers that you think that have got this legend status to them?
I've interviewed them for various objectives. Some have been for film, others have been for books. And I would say what really is common in their personalities more than anything is that they brought something to the screen in their work, whether it was Gulzar Saab to poetry and songwriting, or Amitabh Bachchan to his acting, was changing the rules of the game. They were they were game changers in the way they worked. the way Amitabh Bachchan acted was different from everybody who came before. The way Gulzar Saab writes songs was different from the way other people have written songs. And the same of Nargis ji, Waheeda ji, Meena Kumari. And these people, I would call them really history makers because they changed a little bit. Even Shah Rukh changes a little bit the history of the cinema. And therefore, you pay attention to their work.
I have to talk to you about Rosie and Waheeda Rahman's equation with Devanand. Do you think Rosie represented the true spirit of an independent woman?
Now, that again, you should give the credit to the writer, R.K. Narayan. He wrote the character. And obviously, Vijay Anand adapted the screenplay, and the American version was adapted as well. But the character is a very strong female character who breaks away from a bad marriage, which was very scandalous for those times. And you have to give all the credit to the writer for having done that. However, the credit to Waheeda ji goes in the graciousness in which she approached that role. So it was not a question of judging her. How can she be a divorcee and go off with this guy, Raju, the guide? But in fact, you empathize with her because her performance is so full of grace and elegance that there is no trace of any kind of vulgarity or that you are going to be forced to make a moral comment on her. I think you have to give her that credit. And also, the dances and the performance and everything is so beautiful. So you have to look at what these people bring to the screen. And the character of Rosie, I think, will be one of the strong women characters in the history of Hindi cinema. She will remain very important.
Also, the song "Aaj Fir Jeene Ki Tamanna Hai" is an ultimate feminist song in which Rosie is saying, after leaving her husband, that she wants a new beginning.
Yes, a new life, a new beginning, and it's the death of something. आज फिर मरने का इरादा है means that there's one chapter of her life is dead and over, and then she has to start being reborn again as this new person, and then she starts achieving her goals in her career. It is her love for Raju, but her career matters more. If you notice it, it is the fact that she has become a dancer and she always wanted that. She stood by Raju, but when he started misbehaving, she left him.
Yeah.
So she was
Also,
someone of great morality.
while she had a very good understanding with Devanand, do you think Devanand was one of her closest friend? Like she had the one she was most comfortable with?
I don't know really personally, but I don't believe stars are that close friends. They work together, they bond together, but I don't know if they relax together. And I think she was a private person, and Dev Saab was very flamboyant, and he had his own life and so on. I don't think they were close friends, but there was a lot of mutual admiration, respect, and I'm sure enjoyment of
Each
working
other
together.
company.
Because when Dev Saab made his first film, Prem Pujari, I believe, he cast Waheeda ji. So clearly he trusted her. But I'm unable to say.
Digressing a little bit from the topic, you're one of the fortunate ones who actually have met Satyajit Ray.
Yes. And there are many others. In
Yeah,
Bengal, there are lots. Yes.
his movies have actually displayed the real world with some real problem. You of course met him in Paris. Would you please like to talk to us about your meeting with Satyajit Ray and the conversation you had with him?
You know, he is a very formidable character. Formidable. First of all, he was very tall, and when he entered the room, everybody fell silent. It was no question of chatting when he was entered the room, and he was not over friendly, little very reserved and very correct. He treats you with respect, and you treat him with respect. And there were various. I had met him again in Calcutta, and I had some correspondence with him. And I remember Charulata was programmed on Channel 4, for whom I curate the movies, and the subtitles were done fresh. And so when it was the time of the VHS, and I sent him a VHS of it, and he sent me a lovely letter saying, "At last, I possess Charulata." He meant the VHS tape, and he appreciated the work. And then also in France, we had organized the CD of Jal Sagar Music Room, and then I sent him the CD, In those days, I was sure he didn't have a CD player. So I sent him a recording on audio cassette. You remember the audio cassette of that CD? And he sent me a sweet letter. He said, "How did you guess I don't have a CD player?" So those were the kind of encounters. He noticed everything, very observant, very keenly observant, but not a man of lots of words. I mean, he was very relaxed with his close friends, but I wasn't a close friend. I was just looking after him during that week in Paris.
The other legends that you have written about are Gulzar and Javed Akhtar. Your very famous book, In the Company of a Poet, Gulzar, in conversation with Nasreen Munni Kabir, and your conversation with Javed Akhtar are the two books that you have written with them.
There are three now:
Yeah.
talking films, songs, and life.
Yes. So, how different are they in their writing when it comes to expressing emotions with the songs?
With the songs, I think Gulzar Saab's imagery is very unusual, and he is very visual in his imagery. So he will talk about a bhigi raat, and he'll talk about that lovely song. What is that song? Mere khat mein kya likha hai? You remember the song from Asha Bhosle's song? It slips my mind. But
Mera
his
saman lota do.
Ji, Mera Saman. And so he really sees things in pictures. Every line, you can see the shot, you can see he's a film director, so you can visualize a lot of his words. Very, very unusual and beautiful writing. Javed Saab is also much more a kind of, he was much more, I would say, direct in his writing. I would say he seems to be less interested in romantic visions and romantic imagery. And when he's talking about love, he'll say "Kuch na kaho." So he's also it also indication of he's a man who is quite reserved with his deeper emotions. So the two are very different, very different.
The other documentary that you have made on that was on Amitabh Bachchan, it's called To Follow a Star. It really takes you up close and personal with the mega star that Amitabh Bachchan is. I love the conversation Bachchan Saab was having with Manmohan's Desai when Mr. Bachchan asked him to have the biscuits, and further he added that इसे खाने से picture hit होती है. Did you have a free pass to Amitabh Bachchan, and how was their days to start, especially those parts where you filmed Mr. Bachchan?
I will say Mr. Bachchan is an absolutely professional person. If he says 9 o'clock, you are there at 9 o'clock because he's ready to leave. He is so punctual, so correct, so wonderful. And he was also not at all judging, because if you see that scene, they're sitting there eating, Bachchan ji is eating biscuits, and then Manmohan says, "Oh, you go ahead, aapko zarurat hai." Because, and he takes the joke.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Bachchan says to Manji, eat these biscuits because if you do, your film will be a hit. And then Manji replies, "I think you should eat them because you need the hit." Now, today, who can talk like that to a big star on camera? I don't think there are many people. And there was a great camaraderie. He was a pleasure to work with, absolutely on time. And Jaya ji spoiled us completely. She was so wonderful with us. I think, when I look back now, it's 1989 that program, Follow That Star. I think it's been uploaded by some fan on YouTube. I think I feel really, Vishal, fabulously privileged to have that recorded, those kind of works.
I also love the Anu Malik part where Anu Malik is singing "Aage Hai Problem" and there's music sitting going on in. Was that his house, Amitabh Bachchan's house?
Yes, his house, that was Pratiksha. And then he's singing, and then Manmohan Desai says, "Khincho mat, aap saigal to nahi ho." I mean, who would allow this kind of banter on film today? Everything is so controlled by their managers and their PR people. There's no real, I don't feel there's the same access with these people. Maybe that 800 channels and there's too much social media, and so they're much more protective. But those were the feeling, you get the glimpses of the real person. And Mr. Bachchan was so relaxed, so relaxed. And even Shah Rukh in the documentary In and Out of World was so relaxed. And I think I was very, very lucky. And Lata ji as well, so relaxed. So lucky, Vishal, because I don't think you could make those kind of films with anybody today.
your book, especially the one on Lata Mangeshkar, is like a textbook, or the one on DDLJ. Like you mentioned, the documentary on Shah Rukh Khan, the documentary that you made was Inner and Outer World of Shah Rukh Khan. Now, that was released in 2005. Is there a plan to make another part of that documentary?
I think I'm too small fry. He's become so big. There's a tsunami of love for Shah Rukh today. I don't think he's going to agree for me to do it. It was another time. Now, if he goes with someone, it'll be of some big name. Not me. I don't think he would agree. And fine. And I think, to be very honest, I think that documentary, In and Outer World, that will be archived forever. I'm not sure you'll have the same access with him today. He will not be so relaxed. None of them will be.
Yes. And it's the only time we saw Shah Rukh Khan visiting his own school in the documentary, or he went to the places where he spent his childhood in Delhi.
And where his parents are buried, so he allowed us a lot of intimacy. These are very intimate moments, and you have to respect a distance as well. I remember when we went to the graveyard, and when he finished his prayers and he came out, he didn't know where we were, because we had filming from a long distance. So he said to me, he was very appreciative that the camera was not next to his face. We
Yeah.
were a long way away, because he said that, it's a respect for his moment of privacy. So you saw that shot. It's a long shot. It's not a close up. And so they may give you a lot of access, Vishal, but you have to respect them as well, and you have to know what you want from this documentary, from the book. You have to be very clear.
And finally, Nasreen, what do you think? Do you think it's Waheeda Rahman's professionalism, understanding of cinema, her sensitive approach, the way she portrayed her character, are some of the qualities that appeals most of the directors, and they want to cast her again in their movies, be it Yash Chopra or Rakesh Mehra, or even Satyajit Ray, with whom she only worked on one film.
I think it's because she had, even Sham Benegal actually asked her if she would work in Ankur. And then when she said no, then he started looking around and he cast Shabana. Shabana Azmi came into the picture. I think it's because she was a very understated actress. She's not melodramatic. If you look at that time, it was a little bit over the top. There was a lot of, Arey, hi, ye kya ho gaya hai? All that business was going on, which she doesn't do, which meant she lent herself to a different type of director, someone who could be on the borderline between what now is regarded as independent or author films. And that, I think, is why many directors who have made classic films cast her. And Vishal, ultimately, it is time that curates classics. It's not you and I. And we see these films, and you can easily say there are 5 classics with Waheeda Rahman. Not just the Guru Dutt films, but also Guide, also Tisri Kasam, also Mujhe Jeene Do. This is someone who's got a range, and that she deserves every award for her intelligent understanding of acting, for her kind, reserved personality, and for the films she's given us, because ultimately we know her because of her work.
Yes, yes. Well, in the end, I would like to congratulate Waheeda Rahman for Dada Saheb Phalke Award, and want to thank you for this enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for your time. We are looking forward to your new book. Hope you release one very soon. Thank you so much for your time, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Vishal. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.